Scott Sprawls, if you're you in the back there, we got a,
Should be Craig Macbeth.
or Craig.
He's,
Yeah, this is looking a little different than normal. So I realize that I tend to be technologically impaired, but oh, there it is. I think we got it. All right, I just ask a millennial. Okay, sorry. And thank you, sorry. We were just pressing the wrong buttons. Okay. Whoops, excuse me. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting of the Bloomington City Council to order. If everyone would please stand for a pledge of allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Sage,
Here.
Alderman Lauer,
Here.
Alderman Malumboy,
Here.
Alderman Burgess. Here. Alderman Painter.
Here.
Alderman Schmidt. Here. Alderman Black.
Here.
Alderman Hallman.
Here.
Alderman Fruin.
Here.
Mayor Renner.
Here. We have public comment on our ordinance. You have up to 3 minutes. Since we have well beyond the 10 people this evening, we've got, I believe, 13. If you could be as expeditious as possible, you don't have to take up to your 3 minutes. Please be respectful so that the others may speak. And I'm going to go ahead and read off 3 in a row so that you can be prepared. First is Bruce Meeks, then Donna Bolin, and Alton Franklin, in that order. Thank you. Bruce Meeks.
Evening, Bruce Meeks here. I usually go last, so I'm not really totally prepared. I don't know, because I talk too much up here, I hear. I don't think that's the case, but I was very pleased to be the chairperson on the Bring It On Bloomington. It was, I always get the name confused because it's Water Energy Utility, wait, we call it UEW. And I just want to, since the comprehensive plan's on the agenda tonight, I wanted to focus on page 194. You don't have to turn to it right now, but it was really exciting for me because I kept my mouth shut. And this topic came up, and the topic was information form as we envision it from our working group. And I'll let you read the vision of it, but I'm really pleased that the citizens that were involved in our working group, without any discussion about open and transparency, no discussion about a transparency ordinance to get our data out there so we can be a more economic engine too. I was very happy to see that some people came to their own conclusions without my urging. So I hope that the council will look at that page and make it one of the top priorities. I think it's important to move forward. The next item is related to that, and I hope that we won't continue the home rule situation where you have total ability to raise taxes, to issue $100 million bonds, $10 million bonds, the Coliseum, against the wishes of the citizens. I hope the council will consider doing better than home rule. And if you're going to put something over $10 million on or raising any taxes, I think you have enough time between now and March of next year to put it up for a vote. You guys want citizens engagement? You want citizens qualified and quantified information? It's called democracy. I have a petition ready in my hands that needs 1,000 signatures to revoke home rule. So there you go. I'm going to put that out there for the citizens to think about. I'm putting it out there for civic duty because I think there's some questions that need to be answered. I think the citizens need to be able to voice their opinions in a vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Donna Bolin, Alton Franklin, and then Jamie Massey.
Hi, I'm Donna Bowen from Ward 2. I'm kind of glad to see that there's going to be an ordinance to address the pension issue, but from my experience, ordinances are not always followed. I'm really kind of upset that this even happened for many reasons. Um, to call it an operational failure is really, that's the minimum. Um, there's no record of a directive by Mr. Hales. There's no record of recommendations to amend the policy from 2012 from Mr. Hales, and there's no record of a city manager's comments by Mr. Hales. And not changing the policy would actually benefit Mr. Hales, so that concerns me. And to say that it's not illegal is not really a very good defense. It really, to me, implies a loss of moral compass. Um, Having the Tribune report as a national circulation, um, no amount of redevelopment and cultural amenities can make up for a bad reputation. And I think that this is just another black eye on the city, and I don't think that that's a positive thing. Um, and in my opinion, the Budget Task Force is going to be the next scapegoat, because when they come by with suggestions for raising taxes, cutting fees, whatever, if the citizens aren't happy, it's going to fall on that. And concerning the comprehensive plan, to be honest, I don't believe that the Planning Commission or the Council has really read all 239 pages and digested everything. And the reason I say that is nobody asked any questions the two times it was presented. And I would think that one question could be asked that you maybe wouldn't understand one part of it. Anyway, I also believe that the vote should wait until all members have read completely and digested. To my knowledge, there was no outreach to Ward 2 with the preliminary plan to review it. So I would like that to happen before there's a vote. Thank you.
Okay. Then we have next Alton Franklin, Jamie Massey, and Alan Langrell.
My name is Alton Franklin. I live at 508 Patterson Drive here in Bloomington, Illinois. Folks, I just want to let you know, I know it probably doesn't make a damn to you, but quite simply, I don't trust you anymore. There's been too many things going on. The latest one is now we're going to co-develop, apparently, the property over on Front Street. Couldn't manage it on his own, so the city kind of shifted gears and did what they needed to do to put us at risk again. You know, there's still a question in my mind. I've been assured that the dedicated funding for the pension fund is still going to be there, but to touch on a point that Ms. Bolin made, ordinances aren't always followed, and you know what? There can be another ordinance. And quite frankly, I don't trust this council enough, with one exception, to know that you won't try to pull some stunt like that. I'm letting folks know, and I'm not playing an emotional game. I'm laying out the facts for them. That's going to get much more formalized, much more structured, and much more tangible in the future. Be ready, folks, because you're going to have questions. Thank you.
Okay, Jamie Massey, Alan Langrell, and then Brandy Brown.
Thank you. I'm just here tonight to speak in support of Green Top Grocery. My wife Kelly and I have owned Kelly's Bakery and Cafe for the last 10 years. We have made a very concentrated effort over that time to purchase as much as we possibly can and support our local farmers. And we see Green Top as not only an extension of that, helping us and helping it easier for procurement of that local produce for us at the bakery, but also helping people in town have better access to a higher quality of food. I'm also here in support of using tax abatements to make reasoned and educated decisions, to make logical business decisions on what our city wants to be and how we want it to look in the future. You know, we've heard before in the past that maybe right now is not the time to be making those decisions, and I would say that now is exactly the time to make those decisions. We need to make investments now in order to have a sustainable future 10, 15, 20 years from now. So thank you very much and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Alan Langrel, Brandy Brown, and Gary Lambert.
Hello, my name's Alan Langrel. I'm a citizen of Normal, but thank you for letting me speak tonight. I'm here on behalf of Green Top Grocery as well. I've been a board member and a volunteer since the beginning, and I've recognized the integrity and the honest hard work of all the volunteers and our 2 paid employees from the very beginning. It's an impressive organization. I'm glad to be associated with it. There's a great chance for transformation and change to happen through the co-op. Echoing what Jamie just said, we want to support the local farmers as well. I recently read an article that kind of summed up what little things can do and how much effect they can have on people, the little things that people do. And there's a lot of little things that are done by the volunteers and the people that are supporting Green Top. And this is going to be a quote from an article I read. It's a short quote, but it's in response to an interview that was done back in 1972 from an interviewer that interviewed Buckminster Fuller in Playboy magazine. So the question came to Mr. Fuller was, how can we live with a sense of the individual's impotence to affect events, to improve or even influence our own welfare, let alone that of society? And Fuller offered this, what I believe is a magnificent metaphor that even applies today. Something hit me very hard once, thinking about what one little man could do. Think of the Queen Elizabeth. The whole ship goes by, and then comes the rudder. And there's a tiny thing at the edge of the rudder called the trim tab. It's a tiny thing. It's a miniature rudder. Just moving the little trim tab builds a low pressure that pulls the rudder around. Almost no effort at all. So I said that the little individual can be a trim tab. Society thinks it's going right by you, that it's left you altogether. But if you're doing dynamic things mentally, the fact is that you can just put your foot out like that, and the whole big ship of state is going to go. So I said, call me trim tab. The truth is, you can get the low pressure to do things. Rather than getting on the other side and trying to push the bow of the ship around, you can build that low pressure by getting rid of little nonsense and getting rid of things that don't work and aren't true until you start to get that trim tab motion. It works every time. That's the grand strategy you're going for. So I'm positive that what you do with yourself, the little things you do, these are the things that count. To be a real trim tab, you've got to start with yourself. And soon you'll feel that low pressure. And suddenly things begin to work in a beautiful way. Of course, they happen only when you're dealing with really great integrity. So I get back to that. Thank you, City Council Bloomington, for acting with really great integrity in support of Green Top Grocery.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We're going to have to move on to, was it Gary Lambert next? Excuse me, Brandy Brown. I'm sorry. Brandy Brown, Gary Lambert, and then Katie Novak. Excuse me.
Hello, my name is Brandy Brown, and I am the daughter of David and Kathy Brown, the owners of Brown's Produce Farm here in Bloomington, Illinois. And we have been providing our community with fresh, homegrown produce for over 55 years. And I'm glad to be continuing on the tradition, working on the family farm. I'm here with Green Top Grocery just to talk about that it's an important asset to our community because of the impact that it can have on local farmers. You may or not be aware of the co-op, the Common Ground Food Co-op in Urbana, Illinois. It has a huge impact on local farmers. In 2008, Common Ground Food Co-op had annual sales to local producers of $192,000. In 2010, it jumped up to $431,000, and in 2013, that number was $1.1 million. And you can imagine the impact it would have on local farmers if a local store like Green Top Grocery sold $1.1 million to produce from local farmers. This year, Common Ground Food Co-op is doing so well that they're opening a second location, and the Common Ground Food Co-op buys from 73 local producers and 47 regional producers. Common Ground offered 21 events in 2013 that featured local farmers and producers, which this kind of exposure is invaluable for a farmer. We know that Green Top can have the same success the Common Ground Food Co-op has experienced just an hour down the road. And I hope that you'll vote in favor of the sales tax and real estate tax abatement that will be discussed to help make Green Top a reality here in Bloomington. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Again, Gary Lambert, then Katie Novak, and Roger Day.
Good evening. I've been attending the budget meetings, and I certainly don't want to steal any of Mr. Sage's thunder for later in the evening. However, significant tax increases are being discussed. One of the major reasons for those are pensions. We've all read in the past week or two about the fiasco that we have here in Bloomington with the sweetheart pensions, no other way to label them. And then I read or hear that, well, that was the first I've heard of that. We'll have to get right on that. Well, I certainly hope you do. I see it's on the agenda tonight. But that reminds me, that was a common response from our organizer-in-chief whenever he was confronted with some revelation. It just doesn't wash. You need to get total compensation for city employees in line with common businesses. I ran across a couple of quotes. I don't like to use paper, but I don't want to misquote anybody. The first is from Dick Armey, previous senator from Texas. 3 groups spend other people's money: children, thieves, and politicians. All 3 need close supervision. Amen. The next is from a gentleman named Irwin Schiff. He's also from Texas, but he doesn't like the income tax. His quote is, "If you want irresponsible politicians to spend less, you must give them less to spend." Keep that in mind as you contemplate raising taxes. Thank you.
Katie Novak, Roger Day, and Judy Stearns.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I want to first thank you for serving as your role as council members. I know firsthand what an undertaking that is, so I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. I'm here to read a statement from Tina Cipula, founder and director of the Clare House, located at 703 East Washington Street in Bloomington. Dear council members, I write to you as a resident of Bloomington, Illinois, and an owner of Green Top Grocery in support of the Foundry Retail Development property tax abatement proposal. I am 100% in support of this proposal and in support of Green Top Grocery. I became a Green Top cooperative owner in October of 2014 because I believe in providing healthy food for people, supporting locally grown food, and I believe in providing education in regard to food preparation, and I believe this business will create jobs with fair wages and will improve the quality of life in my own neighborhood. For the past 37 years, I have lived 2 blocks from the proposed Green Top Grocery site. Presently, people in our neighborhood have to travel at least 12 blocks to obtain fresh produce and healthy food. The establishment of Green Top in our neighborhood would have a tremendously positive impact on hundreds of families. I would encourage you to support the Foundry Retail Development Property Tax Abatement proposal and would help others to have access to healthy, locally grown produce. Sincerely, Tina Sipula, founder and director of the Clare House. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to Roger Day, Judy Stearns, and Marty Krylovitz.
Thanks for allowing me to speak. I'm a Bloomington resident from Ward 9. I'm here in support of the Foundry retail tax rebate and property tax abatement proposal, and I urge you to support it. I'm a Green Top grocery owner, as are 863 other residents of Bloomington, Normal, McLean County, and the area. Mr. Kelly supported this proposal. I want to speak directly about something he said, and that's sustainability. Green Top is going to be a co-op grocery that offers a more sustainable business model than typical conventional grocers. I want to cite a few things related to that. Food travels a much shorter distance to get to a co-op grocery store, saving transportation and other costs. Co-op grocery stores sell much more organic food, organic produce, than do conventional grocery stores. 82% at the average co-op compared to 12% at conventional stores. Co-op grocery stores recycle. Co-op grocery stores recycle on average 96% of the cardboard that goes through their doors, compared to 91% for conventional grocery stores. 81% of the plastic at co-op grocery stores is recycled, compared to only 29% at conventional grocery stores. And finally, 74% of food waste. Many of you have heard stories on NPR and other places about food waste. 74% of food waste is recycled at co-op grocery stores, compared to 36% at conventional grocery stores. And just an example of the last thing, at the Green Top Co-op grocery store, we will have a deli that produces food for people to buy. We will use produce at its peak, and this is an example of not wasting food. For example, a perfectly ripe tomato that might not last more than a day or two when you get it home and might be thrown away, we can use that to make a sandwich or a soup or something else right there for you to eat in the deli. I urge you to strongly consider the tax abatement and tax rebate. Appreciate that. Thanks for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Judy Stearns, Marty Krylovitz, and Melanie Shaleto.
Thank you. I appreciate the ordinance tonight regarding pensions. Somehow, regarding pension spiking, somehow I have a little trouble believing that we would even be looking at anything like that if it hadn't been for front page headline story in the Tribune, and more information, by the way, from the Tribune last Sunday. So even though our local paper hasn't said much, the Tribune highlighted it. And not only did they highlight this practice as being egregious and very costly to the taxpayers, but they also they singled out Bloomington for the highest penalty in the whole state of the recent retiree. Now, maybe if that was one instance, one could say, okay, somebody got by with it because they knew how to do it. And who would know better than the director of HR? Who would know better? But 15 other Bloomington retirees also benefited. Where's the outrage from the city council? The bill for padded pensions, says the Tribune, is local taxpayers. That's who's going to pay for this. And you're thinking about raising our taxes? Really? They talk about $1 million in penalties, but it's much, much, much more in padded pensions that will go forth as long as that person lives. The ordinance tonight doesn't go nearly far enough. Where is the simple fact that employees without contracts, and there are many of them under Mr. Hale's charge, why are they even getting sick and vacation pay in lump sums? Where does this happen in the private sector? Anyway, this past Sunday, the director of the IMRF, Louis Kosiba, executive director, IMRF Fund in Oak Brook, said this about the practice. He said, IMRF Board of Trustees firmly opposes this practice. They're unequivocally opposed. He further said, instance of spiking damage IMRF's reputation, and we're we're the leaders here in Bloomington of this practice right now, and infuriate taxpayers. This infuriates taxpayers, and rightly so. And then he goes on to talk about that the IMRF wants to assure the Tribune's readers that there are only a few bad apples, and this hasn't ruined the IMRF bushel. Guess who the bad apple is? The bad apple that didn't know when 15 other people did it. The bad apple that let this happen, harming Bloomington taxpayers. If council doesn't take some kind of action, it's clear that you're totally complicit in this. And you all just voted to give Mr. Hales a raise, with the exception of Alderman Lauer, I believe. And you need now to make sure that Bloomington taxpayers understand there are repercussions for this kind of utter incompetence. Thank you.
Marty? And then Melanie Shalito, and then Clayton Masson.
Good evening, Council. My name is Martin Kralowitz. I'm a resident of Bloomington, and I'm employed as an officer with the Bloomington Police Department. I'm also president of the Bloomington Police Benevolent and Protective Association Unit 21, and I'll be speaking on behalf of our organization tonight. Our union membership has over 115 sworn police officers who care about our community. We care about the innocent, so we try our hardest to solve cases. We care about those that find it difficult to help themselves, so we offer some type of advice or assistance. And we care about our community, and that is why we put on our uniforms and enforce laws to protect and serve. We ask tonight to care for us when it comes to promises that were made. In spring of 2013, city leaders on the council voted 9-0 and passed City Ordinance Chapter 16, Section 46, to fund the police and firefighters' pensions. Shortly after, a utility tax increase was passed by the council, in which we and the taxpayers were told was earmarked to help fund the accelerated pension payments. This was much appreciated because we felt that the city leaders were committed to the promises to our first responders. Plus, it ultimately was going to save the taxpayers millions of dollars down the road by making upfront payments. We have been hearing lately that the Budget Task Force has been throwing around the ideal to suspend or relax the promised accelerated pension payments. To that I say, or we say, it's a bad idea. We understand that budgeting planning is not easy, but the mentality to take a little money from our first responders' pension to pay for other projects is the same type of mentality that got our city behind the pension funding in the first place. So it shouldn't be any surprise that our first responders are disappointed of the news that our promised pensions are at risk again. And it shouldn't be of any surprise that the taxpayers are going to feel upset when they have to foot a higher tax bill years down the road because we want to put out additional payments off now. One cardinal rule of parenting or being a leader is don't make promises you do not intend to keep. Do you blame us for being here tonight and showing a little concern? Once again, we feel that we are put on the back burner to other city pet projects and operational mistakes. We are not numbers. Let me repeat. We are not numbers. We are employees that should be treated like assets to the city. You could fix numbers, but you can't fix mistreatment of the employees that care for their city. Please, I ask you to tell the Budget Task Force to put aside any talks they have on the reduction of our planned funding for the police and firefighter pension. Thanks for allowing me to speak tonight.
Thank you. Melanie, and then Clayton Matheson and John Meckley.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Green Top Grocery. I'm Green Top Grocery's board president, been involved in the project for the full 3.5 years that it's been an idea. We have a lot of supporters here tonight. Can I just real quick get a show of hands for Green Top Grocery? In case the green shirts didn't tip you off. These folks are representatives of the 863 households that have purchased shares to become owners in this project because they believe in it. The owners of Green Top Grocery have been working on this project for over 3 years, and we do this because in our community today, we've seen state's funds to our town shrink and die. We've had executives in corporate headquarters half a world away make a decision that ended jobs here and rocked our town. And when it comes to the basic necessity like food, these 860 households are working towards doing something incredible. We are creating a business owned by this community, made up of this community, working for this community. Green Top Grocery, as an economic driver, will impact the health and well-being of this community with access to good food while ensuring our farmers can continue to use our area farmland for growing food. There are many decisions to be made that are going to be impacting Bloomington budgets. You guys don't have an easy job, and I know that there's talk that maybe this isn't the time to be offering a tax rebate or property tax incentive, sales tax rebate. But like Jamie said, this is actually the best time, because if anything we've learned in recent months, we have to take control of our own destiny here. We have to be able to make decisions right here in our community for the best thing for our community, and that is what Green Top aims to do. There are many reasons why the sales tax and property tax is an important thing for our project, imperative even. Without these incentives, the Green Top project is going to be very, very difficult to actually make the numbers work. These incentives are necessary in the early years of our business to ensure that Green Top is a solid business for decades to come. Green Top Grocery's owners are parents, teachers, nurses, laborers, students, artists, bookkeepers, cooks, farmers, and they've all put their own money into the start of this enterprise, and they continue to do so. We're on track to be raising $1.5 million from the owners, from the people in this community out of their own pockets. Other businesses who will be joining Green Top in the foundry development will also be doing so at great personal expense. We are all investing heavily in this project with whatever means we have to make sure this endeavor happens. Our community and our city needs this to happen, and Green Top Grocery's owners are simply asking the city of Bloomington to share in this project and help ensure that our work is not in vain. I ask you on behalf of the 860 households who already own it and the 2,000 to 3,000 more who will own it in the upcoming years, please vote to accept the economic development package that's been proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Clayton, and then John Meckley.
Good morning, or good afternoon. Mr. Mayor, my time's off, sorry. Mr. Mayor, Mr. City Manager, and ladies and gentlemen of the City Council, I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Clayton Matson, and I'm the Vice President of Bloomington Firefighters Local 49. I'm here to address the issue of pension spiking and the recent comments made by our City Manager, David Hales, on his recent interview on WJBC Radio on August 19th. The comments Mr. Hales made during his interview left the membership of Local 49 very disappointed and frustrated. During the interview, Mr. Hales was asked about how pension spiking occurred and if he knew about it. Unfortunately, Mr. Hales never truly answered the question during his 4-minute interview. Instead, Mr. Hales chose to poorly explain the Police and Fire Retirement Health Savings Program, which, by the way, at this time, the Fire RHS program is currently under an appeal process, and I do not know that it is appropriate for the details of that plan to be discussed at this time. So, regardless, to be very clear, the RHS program has nothing to do with the pension program. The entire interview left a very misguided and poor impression of the Police and Fire Pension Program. To clarify this issue, we need to understand that the IMRF and the Police and Fire pensions are completely separate entities. The IMRF system is where the pension spiking of the reported 16 individuals occurred. Due to the language and loopholes in the IRMF pension code, it is allowable to use any accrued, unused sick time or vacation time as pensionable salary. Any pay increase or use of sick time or vacation time that exceeds 6%, the city will then receive a fee or a penalty, however you choose to look at it, from the IRMF to make up the difference in the fund. The IRMF tries to discourage the practice of any pension padding in the final 3 months of service by assessing these fees and penalties. As for the police and fire pension system, excuse me, any of our holiday pay, overtime pay, sick or vacation time is non-pensionable. We cannot pad or spike our pensions. We also cannot go to our chief, to our HR director, or even to the city manager and ask for a pay increase or for that promotion that we all look for. That is done at the bargaining table. Any pay increase or structure salary is done through the negotiation of our negotiation team and the city's negotiation team, and then approved by the city council.
I'm going to need to ask you to wrap up, Clayton.
Oh, I'm sorry. Any promotional process is done by any rigorous testing and interview process. So the only question I really have is I'm very unsure of how the police and fire pension program got dragged into this issue. I thank you for all of your time, and I appreciate your work.
Okay, thank you. Last but not least, John Meckley.
John Meckley, proud resident of Bloomington, Illinois. Also, I'm the president of Local 49 Bloomington Firefighters. Numerous thoughts have gone through my head since last Monday. Tonight, I want you to look and see these red and blue shirts. I would really prefer that we would not have to be here in red t-shirts tonight. The reason I asked my men to wear these is to show representation. I'd prefer it when we wear our light blues and we come and celebrate something with City Council, as the hiring of new firefighters, or a brand new chief, or an award for our EMS program, or anything besides this. It's been a few years since I had to come and address City Council. Most of you weren't here then. It doesn't get any easier. I believe my biggest thing right now is disappointment. Hurt. I love this city that I live in. I love the people that I work for. I love the people that I work with. I'm called at any time, any place, anywhere as the police to serve, protect, come help people. Apparently David chose to use us. He was in distraught. He was under the nail. They were coming after him. So naturally, he did the right thing. He called for police and fire to come bail him out. I don't think that was the appropriate time. It would have meant so much to me as a guy who sits at that negotiating table, and I'll be there tomorrow, and a gentleman who wakes up in the morning and comes to work, and a Bloomington resident, once again, proud to be. If this whole situation, when it was called out, could have been explained. In reference to what Clayton was talking about with the WJBC interview, he was specifically asked by Scott Laughlin about the interview with the Tribune. He could have given an answer. He could have shared that this has been a practice that has been going on for a while. He could have been completely upfront. Would people be upset? Absolutely. But that's what a leader does. I guess that's the difference between a leader and a manager. I'm proud to work for a chief that's a leader. He has to manage, but our captains, our officers, the people we work with are leaders. And I think the thing that is taken away from us and the reason we are outraged is trust. To some people, trust means nothing. My life is based on trust. I've got to trust every one of those guys back there that when it goes bad, whether they're wearing blue or yellow, that they're going to come and get me. And in most cases, my life will depend on it. I really hope that you look at this decision that was taken in the last week. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate your hard work.
Thank you. We're going to move on to recognition and appointments, and we have the appointment of Patricia Stiller to the Cultural District. Patricia, I think I saw you in the audience. Would you stand, please, and be recognized? Thank you, Tricia. Next, we move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that any members of the City Council would like to have removed from the consent agenda for separate consideration? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the, excuse me, Jim?
Mayor, I would like to pull 7D, as in David.
7D, okay. All right. Anything else? All right. Is there a motion to approve this with the exception of item 7D?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
The motion is moved by Alderwoman Schmidt. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Howman. Any further discussion? And this we can do by voice vote, correct? No, we can't. Oh, jeez. Should, okay, we need money. That's right. Should be okay.
Mayor, I'll make my standard comment that
Please,
with
go
regard
ahead.
to the consent and regular agenda, I have not received any monies or financial benefits from any of the individuals or organizations referenced in these specific agenda items. Thank you.
Okay. And would everybody please vote if you haven't already? All right. The motion carries 9-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Thank you. Moving right along, we'll go to item 7D. And Alderman Fruman, you'd asked to pull that, if you could. Go ahead.
I guess, Mayor, our practice, and I think it's the right practice, is to pull these things to make a simple comment. I guess that's the way we do things, and I'm okay with that. My simple comment is this. I guess I should back up and first say I would like to make a motion that the staff recommendation be approved.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll make that second.
Okay, second by Alderman Lauer. Then you wanted to continue?
Thank you. I simply want to make the statement that I'm uninformed on this. There's no doubt about that. We have to make sure we trust city staff and their recommendations. I think what would catch the public's attention on this is that we have a fire sprinkler system in a concrete structure, in a parking garage, so to speak. And what's going through my mind, and I need to be educated on this maybe now or at a later time, is, you know, is this, we're starting to ask the question, is this too much government? So we're spending $188,000 on a dry sprinkler system to protect vehicles. I understand that, but we need to ask ourselves sometimes about our codes and our requirements and our mandates and things like that. This is getting very expensive for these some of these requirements. So either response now or response for another day. Doesn't matter to me.
Anything to respond to City Manager Hales?
I just offer it doesn't only protect equipment, it also protects police officers and anyone who's in the parking garage itself. We have had damage done to both police vehicles. What we're trying to avoid is a situation where if there was a fire, within the garage, we'd have a sprinkling system that could put out that fire, the vehicles. So it is, a system that was put in when the building was constructed. I can't speak to exact building codes. I'm assuming it was a requirement then as it is now, but unfortunately what we do have is a non-functioning fire sprinkling system. It is dry until such point as there is a need, and then it becomes fully operational with water in it, but it's dry because to avoid it from freezing during the wintertime. So just offer that.
Okay. All right.
I'd just like to speak in support of what we're doing here. And I absolutely agree with you, Jim. I think that questioning things, that I've kind of set a precedent for that. You know that. And so I applaud you for that. What we need to remember, though, is that there is a security issue here. This is a department and a function of our city government that is unlike any other, that deals with folks that are unlike any other, and has to be secured like no other. And so from that standpoint, it certainly is a absolute need in my opinion. Humbly, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, everyone will go ahead and vote, and I obviously is in favor of this as presented. Motion carries 9-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. We're going to go ahead and move on right to the regular agenda, and item 8A, consideration of an ordinance requiring any newly earned sick leave buyback or grandfathered employees be paid after the employee leaves or retires from the city, or alternative option. And we have about a 5-minute presentation and then about a 10-minute discussion, and start with Mr. Juergens.
Thank you. My presentation just went away. Tonight we wanted to take just a few minutes to give a very high overview of sick leave buyback, some of the issues you've been reading about, some of the work that city staff has been doing. To start with, this is while it may seem like a simple issue, it's actually a very complex issue. Start dealing with potential impact to pensions, and with employees that have been grandfathered in and have been relying on these types of benefits for what really now dates back to 1995, it creates a lot of complexities. I would ask you to refer to the council memo that we put in the packet, where we try to give kind of a 20-year history of this program, and also kind of discuss some of the various complex IMRF pension issues that are associated with it.
And just to clarify, as was mentioned by a couple of our people on public comment, IMRF is separate from police and fire, just for the record for everybody to understand.
And I will make that point a couple of times in my presentation, yes. The other point I wanted to make at the beginning here is this has been a long process. Essentially, in the first quarter of 2014, the city started receiving some of these higher accelerated payment bills. It came to the attention of finance, where internal city staff began the process of asking questions, looking into this, trying to work on some of these issues. Our office in legal then became involved with it later in 2014. We began the process of working with IMRF to address some of these issues, to kind of look at various options and negotiate and potentially explore some options. So this has been something that's been going on and that city staff has been working on for some time. Again, due to the complexities of it, we haven't really had a great option to bring forward to the council. We're now tonight wanting to start that process of discussing that with you, and that's why I kind of have up here is we see tonight as the beginning point, the point where we're going to kind of publicly discuss some of these issues, start to talk about some potential issues, start to get feedback, and try and answer some questions. In front of you I have, and there's a handout in the back as well, with just some of the facts associated with this. It's very important that everybody understands sick leave buyback has been a program that the city has been trying to get rid of for some time now. In May 1, 2012, it was ended for classified employees. So any new hires to the city that's a classified employee, they no longer receive this benefit. That has been done away with by City Manager Hales effective May 1, 2012. Those grandfathered employees, because that was for new hires, can earn up to 960 hours of sick leave. They can basically bank that. There's another very small number of grandfathered employees that were here long enough to get an additional supplemental bank, which is another 480 hours, up to 1440 hours. Our union employees, we began negotiating sick leave out of the contract starting in 2009. So between 2009 and 2014, we were successfully able to negotiate sick leave buyback out of our collective bargaining agreements. That again is for new hires. It ranges, now the sick leave buyback within those contracts ranges from a total of 342 at the lower end to 1440 at the higher end, and it varies based on the collective bargaining unit. As was pointed out, police and fire still have sick leave buyback for both new hires and for existing employees. However, it is treated much differently than all of our other city employees. They have a different pension system, and it in no way creates a pension benefit for them. So while they still have sick leave buyback, that's really not part of the conversation that we need to have right now. It's a separate issue, and it has no pension benefit to those bargaining groups. Just to, the eligibility criteria for these grandfathered employees, again, it's across the same for the classified employees as well as the union employees that have it. Basically, it's for anybody that retires or leaves the city with 75 years of combined service and age. However, you have to have a minimum of at least 15 years continuous service. Most of the employees, the grandfathered employees, get their sick leave buyback paid into a retirement health savings account, so it's not actually a cash benefit. However, for, I believe it's Union 699, they actually elected back in the day to have it as a cash benefit. Everybody else gets this paid into a retirement health savings account. We approximate that there's about 250 grandfathered city employees that came to the city before May 1, 2012 that still work with us, that could at some day be eligible for this benefit. That's not including the library employees, because they're under a different, kind of personnel policy. So we're really just talking about the city employees controlled by the city of Bloomington. And I would also say that even though we say there's about 250 grandfathered employees, right now we think there's probably about 60 that would actually be eligible to receive this benefit. Also remember that some of those within the 250, may have used most, if not all, of their sick leave. So there's really no liability per se associated with that. Some of them are unlikely to be here for the entire 75 years and to meet that 15 years of continuous service. So that's unlikely to become, so that 250 is kind of a worst case scenario, but it's unlikely that we're going to have that many employees eligible for this program.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, so now we talk a little bit about the payout. In 1995, there's a memo from former city manager Tom Hamilton that allowed for sick leave buyback to be paid out over 3 months. The effect of this, as discussed in the council memo, is essentially that by spreading it out over that, it helps to some degree get around what we call the 125% rule. The 125% rule in IMRF basically means that you cannot, they're not going to constitute anything as earnings, IMRF earnings, if it's over that 125% in your month in the final rate of earnings period. So they look to make sure, and basically that again prevents kind of any enhancing of pension benefits. It's got to be under that 125%. By spreading it out a little bit, it somewhat increases that final rate of earnings. Now that's where the accelerated payments come in. In 2012, they enacted new provisions that said you have to pay the present value of certain pension benefits, and as one of the speakers mentioned before, that's when you basically are increasing them over 6%. And when you do that, it triggers this accelerated payment where you have to pay the present value. That's what we've been having to pay with some of these long-term employees who have been retiring using that structured payout. Now, as it says up there, the structured payout of sick leave buyback is triggering these accelerated payments. So with that as the very simple background, and again, this is a very complex issue, so I'm trying to simplify it as much as possible. The proposal that is in front of you as a staff recommendation tonight is to treat newly earned sick leave differently than what the employees have already earned. And that newly earned sick leave going forward September 1 would be paid after retirement, and it's about maybe 2 months after that final pay period, a month to 2 months after that final pay period, and that way it does not constitute any IMRF earnings. We're still paying the employee that amount, but it's not going to have any IMRF benefit associated with it. So if you look at the chart I have up here, if you imagine a sample employee, and let's say, for example, that prior to September 1, 2015, they had 300 hours in their sick leave bank. They could have, let's assume this is a classified employee, they could have had 960 hours, but they've been using their sick leave and they only have 300 hours now. Let's say they're healthy, they don't use any more, they haven't retired yet. Over the course of the next few years, they earn another 200 hours in sick leave buyback. So at the end of their retirement, when they leave, we've got two different columns of sick leave buyback. The 300 hours in column 1 would still be allowed to be spread out over that 3-month period pursuant to the policy that's been in place for so many years and that they may have counted on. The second column, however, would be paid after the employee retires and go directly into the retirement health savings account. They would still get that, but it would not have any IMRF benefit. It would not go towards any accelerated payment that the city would owe.
Okay.
With that,
We had questions, comments?
Mayor, if I could, just to finish up, I just passed out to you today at noon. We invited any of the employees who are members of the IMRF or anyone else to come, and what Jeff and I did was just talk to them about some of what has been looked into and to share with them the recommendations we're bringing to you tonight. Because we had such a short window of opportunity, we wanted them to come in and share with us any thoughts, comments, suggestions they wanted to bring to your attention. This is kind of a summary. Let me point out that I think we had a show of hands, and I think the vast majority of those people that were here, one, they had already reached their cap. And in many occasions, I think it was the 960. So a lot of people who were at the cap, very concerned about what others who have retired before, what they have been allowed to do as per the 1995 policy, and they're very concerned about, well, is it going to stop? You know, are they going to be treated differently? Is there going to be fairness, equity, and how these so-called grandfathered employees are going to be treated as opposed to those going forward? Secondly, when we asked for a show of hands, almost everyone felt that the rules shouldn't change in midstream, that basically allow those who are, again, the grandfathered legacy employees who are here, allow them to retire and have the same options as the employees who have retired prior to now. Now, again, you know, that's the contentious issue here. Should they still be allowed to take their payout, sick leave buyback, over 3 months as opposed to in one check? So that certainly was what, you know, almost everyone raised their hand in hoping that the council would do, and we said we would take what they shared with us and provide that to you, so you have a chance here to kind of look at those issues. And I also kind of draw attention to the second to the last bullet, because even, you know, concern was raised about would a change in the rules be a so-called violation of the Illinois State Constitution and its rule, the so-called pension clause. So they're very much aware of this. They're concerned about that, whether or not that, again, a rule change is going to impact them and how they see the constitutional protections against them. So we wanted to share this with you. I think there was great concern that maybe the council's acting too quickly to try to resolve this. I think many of them even feel this is a complex issue, and it has great impact. Anytime people start to look at retiring, they're usually thinking and planning on that years in advance of the actual retirement date. So they had some great concern, and I think one of those final suggestions was, City Council, please take some time, try not and act, you know, too quickly, and give both them as well as the council an opportunity to think through all the implications of any action before taking any kind of final action on an ordinance. So just share that with you as a result of the input from today. Thank you.
Obviously, this is a complicated issue, and we've already exceeded the budgeted time for this, but what we could conceivably, there's certainly options in order. I could entertain a motion and a second for a proposal, or I could entertain a motion to postpone this to a time certain or non-time certain. Any thoughts, Alderwoman Howland?
Thank you. I did attend the employee information session today, and it was interesting. I think there's too much emotion and lack of clarity on the employees' parts to take action on this tonight. I think,
Is that a motion then to postpone this?
I would move that we postpone
Not,
this.
with a date certain.
No, I would be comfortable with,
90 days or 60 days?
well, even 30 days to bring
30.
it back to the table.
Wow.
Because I think the employees were asking for more time to talk about this. I don't know, David, would 30 days be enough, do you think, or?
I'd almost go 60 days myself, yeah.
Okay,
It's,
well, or just at this point, I think it's kind of...
At least 60.
We need you to make the motion.
Okay, okay, then I move that we postpone taking action on this for 60 days.
Okay, is there a second to that, to postpone this for 60 days?
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Alderman Lauer. And at this point, Alderman Fruin?
I guess I'll back down a little bit here. I was hoping it'd be a longer period of time. 60 days seems like adequate time, but there is a lot of emotion involved. I guess I would have favored 90, but I'll support 60.
Okay. Alderman Black?
Thank you, and thank you, Jeff. This is a very complicated issue, and obviously tensions are running high on this one, and I apologize I wasn't able to make it to the employee meeting today. I guess, in that time frame, what are we looking for between now and, 60 days from now, assuming that this passes? What information are we hoping to glean from that? Are we looking for employee feedback? Are we looking for, what would the goal be? I guess I'm asking you, Diana.
Yes, of course.
Thanks. I think it would be gracious to the employees who asked for the time. They were concerned that that they learned about this on Friday, and it was going to be on the agenda tonight. And so I think, if nothing else, it'll give them maybe time to process what we're talking about.
Sure.
And it would also, one of the items on the feedback from employees was finding out what this would cost, that last bullet on the first page. And I think that would be helpful for us. It might also be helpful for the employees if they were to see how much this would be costing, where they might work with us on it.
So thank you. So I guess I'll muse here a little bit, in the sense that I think that we are moving very quickly on this, and I think it's probably a little more expedited than I'd like it to be. But I think the structure I'd like to see, in the next 60 days would be kind of some scenarios for different employees. When I look at this one-page document, we're talking about very different groups of employees all on one page, and I think that's where we're getting a lot of the confusion in the public and the employees in that discussion. Very clear, I'm an HR guy, so I know how everyone goes back to HR with this stuff. Very clear suggestions and scenarios and how it's going to impact, different employees, and I think that's what I think people want to see. Sick leave buyback, is something to me that, as part of the budget task force, and the things that we've been talking about are our employees being compensated in line with the private sector, and some of the feedback has been, in past years, the approach has been maybe, public employees are paid less on the front end, but they get a more generous pension, and are we still in alignment with that? This is a lot of hours. I mean, you do the math on it. If you have the 960 hours, that is essentially 6 months of time that you could miss being sick while being paid on the payroll. I can't think of any private sector employer that's offering that much time. Now, does it mean that we go back and change the rules for the employees who currently were promised that? I think that's the problem. But I'd like to see at least a few scenarios of how it would impact a typical employee. We're speaking in a lot of hypotheticals. It's hard to really drill down to see what it actually looks like, and at least for me, and I suspect the employees too. Additionally, I think it would be great to get some unfiltered employee feedback to us. I'd love to see just kind of an anonymous, box that people can, maybe an email or whatever, that we can then take a look at. And I know that those are going to have a bent to them, and that's okay. But I think it's important that the employees know that we're listening to what they have to say, and this isn't just a rash decision to kind of move forward based on public feedback. So that's my feedback.
Okay. Alderman Lauer.
Yeah, I think we're acting in haste if we would vote on this tonight. I hesitate to delay too long, though, and allow for another possibility of a spike. Okay? Mm-hmm. And I think we need to have some strong conversation about that type of activity. David, can you fill in for me? I'm a little, I kind of misunderstand, I think. Exactly when was it that you were aware that this law took place in 2012 and this was available to our current employees so that they had the ability to so-called spike their pension?
Well, I think it goes back to 95. I'll let David
Well,
answer, but.
But
Yeah, no,
when were
yeah,
you aware of that?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'd say it was back in 2014 as we started to see these invoices come into us, and IMRF says we would like to now have the city pay these accelerated payments. Those invoices began to grow, and especially as we had some of the seniors, as we had not only our staff, but also an employee of Sorley Northrop, a retirement specialist, look into it. Then it was brought to our attention, my attention, and others, that in 2012 we lost out on an opportunity. There was a 6-month window of opportunity after the law passed, and during that time, all cities had the option, they didn't have to, but the option of either paying the so-called enhancement in pension earnings as a present value or accelerated payment, or they could pay it to IMRF over time, but at a high interest rate. So, and I think that's important to point out. You know, you pay it either way, but at least serve as that opportunity to say if you want to postpone it and pay interest on it, you can just roll that into your rates. I was not aware of that back in 2012, but it was brought to our attention in 2014 as we began to, it was brought to our attention we lost out on that opportunity. I authorized last fall a letter to go to IMRF asking if they would reconsider and grant the city kind of a special waiver so that we could still take advantage of that same provision to fund it over time. We got a definitive letter from the IMRF in June, just a couple of months ago, and unfortunately they said no. We lost out on our opportunity. So we even went to that extra effort to see if they would give extra, consideration, because we did not. So.
Okay, and to that point, it was brought to our attention over the Emily Bell, who was at the time the Human Resources Director, and should have known precisely what she was doing, I would have to assume. At what point do you believe that she was aware of what was taking place?
I couldn't speak for her, but neither the HR director nor the corporate counsel at that time brought to my attention an urgency that don't we at least want to take advantage and request, that we could pay this out over time.
Okay, and also, can the city, or is the city could we be held liable in one direction or the other here? And could David be held liable for possibly not making a decision or possibly not being aware prior to 2014?
That's to you, Jeff.
Liable for what, I guess?
I guess not being aware of the situation prior to having allowed us to be exposed to it, I guess, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, I wouldn't give that type of legal advice kind of in an open session like this. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Alderwoman Burgess, and then we're going to have to move on. Okay.
If you don't mind, I just want to ask a question to make sure I'm understanding. So in 2012, when some of these employees took advantage of a policy that was set in 1995, at that point in time, even though you knew about it, there was nothing you could do to stop the pension enhancement based on the sick leave buyback. Is that correct? I mean, what we're talking about is you had the opportunity to structure how we would have paid for it differently, but we couldn't have stopped them from actually taking advantage of that policy in 2012 because that would have been a diminishment of their benefits, correct?
And I would just say, I think that's still our risk now. I think sometimes people feel that, okay, you can, cut it off right now, here and then. Even one of the employees brought up that very issue. Well, if we want to, have it challenged, twice the state of Illinois has been to court in action that has been alleged to be a diminution or diminishing of the pension clause, and twice the state Supreme Court has turned them down. We could be in that same boat. Hence, even in the Tribune article, DuPage County, who was looking at taking some pretty drastic efforts to modify how they took out the so-called, sick leave buyback bank after they received legal counsel guidance, they stopped and they just said all the employees who are grandfathered will continue to be allowed to take that bank of pay, as others have done. And the only thing that'd be changed, as we have done going forward, is we've eliminated even the sick leave buyback program for all new employees. So I think it's, you've got to be careful. There is risk in kind of changing the rules, as we saw with DuPage County and many others who have been looking into this issue.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Okay, at this point then, we have a vote to postpone this for 60 days. An aye would be to vote to postpone this. A nay would be not to postpone this. Okay. We have a unanimous vote, 9-0, no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Mr. Juergens. We're going to move on. Okay. We move on to item 7B, consideration of approval of resolution of a property tax abatement and Green Top grocery sales tax rebate incentive for the Foundry Retail Development. And we do have Mr. Austin Grammer coming forward. And just to say a little bit about this, we have been in, as the council and probably the public knows, we've been in discussion with Green Top for just about a year and worked with many of them. We did have in early February worked out many of the details on this particular proposal. And just in terms of, as mayor, one of the critical economic benefits of it is not just that it qualifies as a so-called food desert, but it's in an area that will have residual benefits for our downtown, an older neighborhood, and frankly, quite strategically, it's right across from the David Davis Mansion, just at the point where we're opening up a Route 66 visitor center that is directing people to the David Davis Mansion. And so we have the Looking for Lincoln exhibit on Route 66. Obviously, Lincoln comes well before Route 66, but we have very creative historians in our, McLean County History Museum who have managed to do this marketing for us. So we certainly would expect that it wouldn't just be a benefit to Bloomington, to McLean County, but to the broader, perhaps even broader national economic hit to us here if people go to see the David Davis Mansion and that increases substantially, and along the way they drop some cash in the city of Bloomington. The other thing is that it would be the first multi-million-dollar investment along Constitution Trail. Normal has no shortage of multi-million-dollar investments on Constitution Trail. We don't have any. This would be a first. So for many reasons, it's a very strategic investment, and that's just a quick backdrop, and I will turn it over to our...
Mayor?
Yes,
Excuse me. I need to recuse myself?
Okay, even before the presentation? Okay. We do have several people who are Green Top, who are investors in Green Top, who are going to need to recuse themselves, and they are going to leave the room, and I believe we have 3. Now, Alderman Fruin, though you wanted to weigh in before that happened, go ahead.
If I can, I'd like to weigh in on my non-legal opinion. Discussion now or for another time. And I assume the reason for the recusal is ownership, whatever that is, $100. I don't know what it is, but Knights of Columbus, you can go down the list. History Museum, we're all members. We're all paying $50. We're all paying $100. At some point, we've got to decide some of these nominal donations, fees, memberships, ownerships. We got to be careful that we don't go over the top and start recusing ourselves on every situation. Right. If you're going to get into that situation, we're going to get council members up here that are not engaged in their community, not participating in their community, and again, that's pretty legal, non-legal advice. But I respect those that are asking to be recused. But well, whatever it is, how much is it?
200.
Well, 200. Well, just at this point, let's just have Mr. Juergens answer that question. But
So
I very much
my
appreciate
point
it.
is
Again,
that-
there's definitely some gray area here, and I appreciate you bringing this up, Jim. Yeah.
There's not as much gray area here when you actually have an ownership interest in something that's becoming before the council, no matter how nominal it is. And it does have to be nominal because otherwise you couldn't even serve on the council and take action on these things. You do have to, this isn't a city code policy, this is in the statute. So for Alderman Black and Alderman Painter.
Sure. So I have less than 1%. Do I have to leave, or can I think we talked earlier, I can stay up here, or?
You know, that then gets into our city code policy, which I think the history is you leave the
Step out.
chambers.
All right.
All right.
Well, unfortunately, I will have
We
to
have,
recuse myself on this.
Alderwoman Howman
Yeah.
as well. You're being recused. Are you recusing yourself?
Well, my husband's been significantly involved in the owner loan program,
Okay.
recruiting
All right.
donations.
So Alderwoman Howman, Alderman
Yeah,
Black,
I've been involved,
and
yeah.
Alderwoman Painter will be excused. Thank you very much. Thanks. We'll come get you. Okay. Austin, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Alderman. Thank you for the introduction, Mayor. You've summarized a good portion of what I was going to say, so I'll get right down to the meat of it. Combining the projected $2.4 million investment to construct the Foundry Retail Center and Green Top's $1.9 million investment in their space. This project represents a $4.3 million investment in the core of the city, right along Constitution Trail. As the mayor did address, this location that Green Top has chosen is in a food desert, as identified by the USDA. A food desert means that it takes quite a lot of time for residents in that food desert area to access food. They have to get in their car, drive quite a ways, or also it means that they have fewer options to choose from in and amongst, if there even is a opportunity for a fresh food grocery store in their neighborhood. There may only be one to choose from, whereas other portions of our community are blessed from multiple options. The location is great. It's right along Constitution Trail, so it'll tie in with the trail and all of the aspects of that we hope to promote in our community. It's also right along 2 bus routes and between 2 more, so it's really serviced by 4 bus routes in our community, providing access to the entire community very easily along Connect Transit. Again, these are multiple renderings provided by the developer. We have the developer here in the audience if you have any questions for him. We also have, of course, representatives from Green Top that are available to answer any questions that you might have of them as well. In cooperation and in support with Libby Au of the National Development Council, earlier this year staff put together a package of incentives that meet the city's approved economic development incentive policies while also being tailored to support the unique situation of the business that we are seeking to support. Staff is proposing a 10-year sliding scale sales tax rebate for Green Top Grocery. It would be 100% of all sales taxes that they generate in year 1, and then decreasing in 10% increments each year. The reason for that is because the first years of Green Top, just as the first years of any business, would be very difficult. They will be fighting an uphill battle to try to get their feet established under them, and so that's why we structured the incentive the way that we have, that it's front-loaded. You'll see other sales tax rebate structured for other maybe national retailers being a fixed percentage over a certain number of years. The law allows us to do a sales tax rebate. It doesn't say how it has to be structured. So therefore, in order to be as most accommodating and as most supportive to Green Top, this is the way that we've structured it. We're also proposing a 5-year property tax abatement for the Foundry retail development, as construction costs are the same to build a new retail center on Veterans Parkway as they are on Washington Street, but the market rates of rent that can be charged on Washington Street are much lower than on Veterans Parkway. This development would not occur without the proposed property tax incentive. By abating a portion of the newly created incremental property tax created by the development will therefore be feasible.
If I could just clarify that, if you can make, is there any tax money that we are getting right now that would be part of the rebate?
Is there any tax money that we're getting right now that would be part of the rebate? No, there is not any tax money that we'd be getting right now. And that brings me to my other point, that these incentives are structured in such a way that they are a rebate of new or increased city revenues that are generated by the project, and only if those revenues materialize. The city is not fronting any funds for this development. All of the risk is on the developer and the retailer. Again, keeping in line with established council-approved economic development policy. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Questions, comments? Alderman Lauer.
So can you kind of fill me in? Is there an estimate of how much more food
is going to be sold here that isn't normally sold? Are we going to be eating more as a community? I fail to understand. Again, we're dealing with a community, and unless we invite an awful lot of folks from outside, someplace, to buy more food, and market ourselves in that manner, it's apples and apples here. We're not going to be selling or buying more food.
Okay.
And so we're rebating tax for one and not the other. Why don't we just rebate tax for everybody?
Well, that's a great question, Alderman Lauer. If you look at this map of the food deserts of the city of Bloomington and the town of Normal, you'll notice that there is no food desert up here in this northern portion of Normal, where we have Kroger, Sam's Club, Walmart, Fresh Market, Aldi, and Meijer. All of these grocery stores in Normal are collecting sales tax for the town of Normal. We have many Bloomington residents that are crossing into Normal to purchase groceries. The city of Bloomington receives no sales tax revenue from those purchases by our own residents. That sales tax that we are losing out on is a loss to us to fund our police and fire and public works.
Well, and fill
So
me
by
in.
bringing
Yep.
this grocery store into the city of Bloomington, it will better position us to pay for all of the city services.
So by that logic, has Normal rebated taxes for every one of these grocery stores in
Yes,
the past?
yes. The town of Normal has entered into I believe it is a 20-year sales tax rebate with Meijer to provide them $2 million. That was part of their business attraction package to bring Meijer. That Meijer store does over $70 million in sales a year. So
So you're telling me that if it wasn't for Normal, everything would be equal, and this might not have been a good idea then?
I'm sorry, what is that?
You're telling me from that inference that if it wasn't for our next door neighbor that's getting more than we are, that this wouldn't necessarily be a good idea?
I'm not sure that they're necessarily getting more than we are. I think it's more of a point of can we get more? Can we get our fair share? Can we get our own residents to be able to shop in a store in the city and that we can get benefit from that?
I'm an open market guy, and I would think that, an entity out there could make themselves more attractive. The food is that much better. I'm an old farm boy. I'll attest to the fact that I understand what fresh produce is. I've grown it. I've eaten it. I grew up on it, okay? But that being said, this is a capitalistic society, more or less, and, open competition is a good thing. And so, all things being equal, if you've got a better product, people are going to be more willing to purchase. And so I don't understand why we have to get into rebating and abating property taxes for years on end. A lot of us are not even going to be sitting here when this thing ends. And we're dealing with other things that folks have decided our budget is affected by things that happened 20 years ago. And I hesitate to make decisions right now that's going to affect somebody that's sitting in this seat 10 years from now.
Well, we don't necessarily have to answer.
Sure.
I'm going to ask for a motion then. Alderwoman Schmidt?
I would like to make a motion, and then I would like to weigh in.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion that we approve this as presented to
Okay.
us.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Burgess, I guess. Okay. Was it Maboka? Maboka, Alderman Lomboy. All right. Now we'll go back to, you have the floor, and then I'll go to Alderman Fruin.
In addition to the economic argument that I really understand what you're saying, Austin, I think the answer to the question about are we going to eat more food, we're not going to eat more food, we're going to eat different food. I'm a food desert. People do not have access to decent food. They have access to Fritos. They have access to quick food that they're picking up at the convenience store. This is a completely, in my opinion, and I know I can see we're not agreeing on this, but in my opinion, I think this is transformational in many, many ways. Not just economically, it's not just putting some gas in the engine, but I also think that it's opening up Jerry's giving it to you. You giving him a hard time. Um, but I do think that as we heard from Tina Sipula tonight, you know, she's run Clare House for a long time, and you and I both represent people who do not have access to decent food. So I also see this as a social benefit in addition to an economic benefit, and it's, to me, I know we don't agree, but I come at it from that perspective.
Alderman Fruin.
Thank you, Mayor. I am supportive. A lot of hard work has gone into this by city staff plus all the people from Green Top organization that make this happen. So in any agreement like this, it's not a 100% perfect scenario for anybody, but I think the good outweighs the questions. I guess I just want to be careful with our communication. I don't want to pick here, but the opposite of food desert is Veterans Parkway, where we got grocery stores all the way up and down. Help my geography here. The Jewel Osco at College and Veterans, is that Bloomington or Normal?
That's in Bloomington.
Okay, I thought that was a dividing line there. So, I mean, we can talk about Meyer, Normal, but you go from Jewel Osco, you're going to Meyer, Cub is now gone. You got Kroger's, you got another Jewel Osco on Oakland Avenue. I think we have to be careful about this conversation. I don't want to read too much into what you're saying, but Bloomington residents going to Normal to grocery shop. If that's true, then we got Normal residents coming to Bloomington to grocery shop. So I don't know how that scenario plays out. I did want to ask you one question, just out of curiosity. You said Meyer creates $70 million. Did I understand that to be grocery sales?
That's on, I believe on average, according to the National Retail Federation, for an average Meijer store.
Store completely,
Completely.
And not just groceries.
Right.
Okay, so again, I think we have to be careful. That's one example. We need to be careful of the numbers we're throwing out. So don't want to pick,
Sure.
but communication is a lot of things, and somebody's going to have heard that that's $70 million of groceries. A lot of good things about this, and I'm fully supportive. So thanks for all the good work.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Burgess.
I'm going to try not to repeat anything that's been said, but I probably won't succeed because first I'm going to echo something that Alderman Fruin just said, and that this is not about whether or not this is the most perfect or the most ideal scenario. The question is, you know, yes or no tonight. And will we be better off by saying yes or no? And I think to me the answer clearly is that if we were to pass up on this opportunity and not to support this new endeavor in our community, we would be worse for it. For many different reasons, but I mean, it's locally owned and operated, it will support our local farmers, all of these things are wonderful additions to our community. Another one I think which Mayor Renner spoke to briefly is that this hopefully will serve as a new model for development along the trail. These mixed-use, neighborhood-friendly type of developments that will make us a livable, walkable community where people want to be part of the community, where they want to start their own new business, and where they want to stay in the community over time. So it's just a multi-layered benefits to this, what amounts to very little commitment by the city. There's no upfront money. We are just reaping the benefits of giving some tax rebate to the individuals who are putting their own money into this project, their own hard work into this project, and we will get to benefit from that over time. I'm very impressed with the staff, including Austin, that you have worked out a deal that is probably about as narrowly tailored as it could be to make sure that we give enough incentive that the project will succeed without going too far. Again, no upfront money. There are expectations on behavior that we expect to be met over time. That in return for having given these benefits, we expect to get something back. And I think I'm very optimistic that we will get more than we could possibly have hoped for because this is so well supported by the community. So I firmly support it. I think that it should be noted that a large number of our council has had to recuse itself because they are so supportive themselves of this project. And while they cannot vote, I think that does in some way speak to the appeal of what is happening here tonight. And I think to pass up this opportunity would be a mistake.
Okay.
I
Last
just got
word.
one more small statement here.
Sure.
It is not true that there is not upfront money. There is upfront money. When we go back and we ask for sales tax increases, which the county is pushing right now, okay, because they've got several things, and the town of Normal is certainly pushing on some things that I would not consider absolute needs. We've got a lot of other things that we need to be doing prior to building a soccer complex. Yes, there is, when you have a finite number of folks and a finite amount of produce that's being bought and sold, there's a finite amount of sales tax revenue from that. If you rebate part of that, then there is money up front. It's indirect, okay? But it is there, and it is real. And so we're giving an unfair advantage. Something else that we haven't talked about here is there's 2 other retailers that are going to be in this complex, and we haven't even been told who those are. Who actually is going to be moving? There's 2 existing businesses that are going to be moving into the Foundry complex.
I can just clarify that. One of them in particular is extremely sensitive, and it's up to them to decide. It's up. They're the ones. The developer's taking the risk, not us. So, and we're not giving upfront money. There's not a penny we're getting right now that we're giving to this.
Well, you and I disagree there. There is upfront money. It's just on the back side. And so if you look at... Sorry.
Okay, excuse me.
If there's a finite amount of sales tax revenue that's being generated and you give part of that away, then there is, in reverse, there is upfront money. I'm sorry, there is.
Okay.
Thanks.
At this point, an aye vote is in favor, a nay vote is opposed. Excuse me. The motion carries 5-1. There's only one nay to announce, Madam Clerk.
Alderman Lauer.
Okay, thank you very much. And if we could bring our other third of our city council back. Oops, sorry. The motion carried 5-1, just FYI. Okay. We're going to go ahead and move on to item 8C, consideration of resolution adopting the City of Bloomington Comprehensive Plan 2035 as the official comprehensive plan for the City of Bloomington. We have had, obviously, many work sessions and updates on this over a long period of time, and including one in our last exciting episode. So we have a fairly brief one this evening with Tom Daberreiner, our distinguished director of Code Enforcement. We even still have your drawing up here. Do you want to go ahead and do that? I mean,
apologize for that.
I mean, you're an artiste here.
I am selling copies outside.
Are you signing them?
Sure.
Can we take pictures?
Another $5.
Okay. Anyway, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to you then, Tom, and then we're going to go ahead and have a quick discussion and move on.
Right. This will be quick. Obviously, there have been a ton of meetings. I am thrilled to be able to come to you tonight with a resolution for your consideration on the approval of the Comprehensive Plan 2035 as the official plan for the City of Bloomington. Very quickly, what's the Comprehensive Plan? It is a 20-year look at what this community might look like physically, for the most part, in terms of redevelopment, development, and preservation. And it's based on economic trends, market trends, as well as social trends. So all of these things are pulled together to form the comprehensive plan. And really, in brief, it is a document, it's a guideline to help us make the community, the City of Bloomington, a better community in the future. So this plan, as has been said many times, has been based on 18 months of extraordinary public input, more than I've ever seen personally in a single plan. It is based on at least a dozen meetings of the Planning Commission who worked on the details of this over the last, really since the first of the year. Before that as well on an informational basis, but the details since the first of the year. Importantly, this plan includes 2 meetings where testimony was provided during July. One of those, of course, was July 22nd with the official public hearing.
And then finally, on August 12th, the Planning Commission recommended approval to the council of this plan. And I am really happy to say that staff concurs with the recommendation. Be happy to take any questions.
Okay. Questions for Mr. David Reiner? Alderman Black and then Burgess.
I'd like to make a motion we approve as presented.
Okay, moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Burgess. And I'll go back to you. Do you want to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Vasu. I see you back there. This is a lot of hard work, throughout the whole process, trying to get as many people engaged. I remember you came to a couple of my neighborhood association meetings and messaging me late at night about ways to get more people to get involved. It's tireless passion. It's wonderful. This is great. Wholly supportive. Thank you.
And then just let's also be clear, we do need to fairly expeditiously work on how we go forward with this, no later than deciding on by our September 12th retreat, how we want to move forward maybe in work groups to implement this, because I think we all agreed we didn't want this to sit on the shelf. Alderwoman Burgess and then Howman.
And actually, that was my question, because I think that's what's on everyone's mind now is we have so much community input, so much community investment. How do we make sure that it actually comes to reality and that we move forward?
And that's up to us in our work groups, and however we want to, again, my thought was we'd break up into 3 groups of 3, and I'd float between them or be dismissed if necessary, however we want to do that, as we move forward. But let's think about that, and let's try to come to some kind of consensus possible by our September 12th retreat. That's okay. Alderwoman Howman.
Thank you, and thank you, Vasu. Thank you, Tom, for all the work that was done on this. There was a comment made during public comment that we didn't ask questions during the work session last week, and I would just like to say that most of us had multiple opportunities to review this draft with Vasu and with other folks prior to the committee of the whole last week. So we did ask questions, maybe not in this public forum, but in our 2 and 3 on 1, we did, I think, got our questions asked and answered during that time. So thanks.
Great. Okay. At this point, an aye vote.
I've got a comment
I'm
before we
sorry.
start.
Okay, I didn't see your light on.
With all due respect, I see this as a template of unabated socialism. It is very, very limiting in its scope. We're limiting many businesses and folks on the periphery from encouraging to invest in our community. We're so focused on centrist and building from within, we are failing to understand that there are some that don't want to do that and would invest in our community. In my view, it retards our economy. It's very restrictive. It has all the tenets of form-based code in many, many areas. The zoning changes that are going to be proposed in many cases are going to be damaging. And though our zoning codes probably could use a bit of overhaul here and there, I don't think that we've been making a mistake all along here, that we would go and change all these right now, just to enact something that is really a template for something from the outside. It's really not necessarily something that was organic to Bloomington. We ask how our prioritization gets skewed, and we end up with paying for zoo expansions and flamingo exhibits when we can't pay for the turnout gear for our firefighters. This is one of the areas. This is how that decision process gets skewed. I think we need to take a bigger step back and a harder look at what we're doing here. Thank you.
Okay. An aye vote is in favor. A nay vote, of course, is opposed. The motion carries 8-1. There's 1 nay to announce, Madam Clerk.
Alderman Lauer.
Okay. All right. We move on to item 8D, consideration of adopting an ordinance to authorize a TIF feasibility study and the award of a professional services contract to Peckman, Gutton, Albers, and Viets in the amount of $36,600 for the purpose of creating a redevelopment project area that would include Colonial Plaza and adjacent qualifying properties. This is also related, of course, to item E, but we have them separate. We've got a 5-minute presentation, 10-minute discussion here, and then a 5-minute presentation and 10-minute discussion of the second segment of this. Thank you.
Well, staff is proposing that a portion of Empire Street be studied regarding the feasibility of the creation of a tax increment financing district. The council will be asked to approve a feasibility ordinance tonight to hire a consultant to study this area to determine if the properties in this area qualify for TIF. This need for this study is being kicked off by a request from the owner of the Colonial Plaza Shopping Center, which we'll kind of talk about here in just a minute. But basically, as a person drives down through this Empire Street area, you'll see that it is likely highly eligible for TIF. This is from the Tax Increment Financing Act, defining what a blighted area would be, where you see a prevalence of dilapidation, excessive land coverage, deleterious land use or layout, excessive vacancy. The Colonial Plaza Shopping Center has a rate of 77% vacancy. We also have many other vacant buildings along Empire. Just as coincidence, unfortunately, the Bullmore AMF bowling alley closed during the time that we had the request for proposals out to find a consultant to study this area. So that's yet another property that will be hopefully redeveloped, but may need some municipal assistance due to its age. There's also considerable vacancy further west along Empire Street, and then this map area that we've highlighted for the feasibility study also includes portions of Constitution Trail. Again, that has been called out in our comprehensive plan as a focused area for redevelopment. This whole highlighted area is focused as a Tier 1 redevelopment priority area for infill redevelopment. If we can get this part of town happening again, this will be excellent and will reduce the need for further expansion into our green fields out on the perimeters of town where it's more expensive for us to offer city services. Again, we did a competitive RFP and process and had a great response from the firm PGAV. They have completed numerous TIF eligibility studies and put together comprehensive redevelopment plans. This is kind of a sample of the binder that this whole study will potentially end up resulting in, mainly studying the area to determine if it qualifies. PGAV does a great job. They put really great color photos of all of the properties that they study, pointing out all the different eligibility criteria that the property meets. This will be a great piece of product in order to provide for the affected taxing bodies, so that way they understand the need for tax increment financing and that this area or portions of it would qualify for tax increment financing. Be happy to take any questions.
Questions of Austin? Alderwoman Schmidt.
In addition to looking at whether or not it meets the criteria, at what point do we begin thinking about how the other government bodies that need to sign off on a TIF? I'm thinking about District 87, the county, et cetera. When does all of that kind of fold into this?
Alderman, if I could answer that. We've already begun that process. Austin and I have sat down with the District 87 superintendent, their legal and financial officers, so we've kind of begun those discussions as well as, the county.
Mm-hmm.
So, the two other bigger entities we've had just privately, those discussions will continue. And keep in mind, this could very well, the boundaries of the TIF could shrink, but we've begun that communication already.
And just as at 1,000 feet, you and I actually had chatted with Barry Riley about West Side, very surgical, maybe even short-term TIFs, and obviously we've been talking to them about possibly a downtown TIF, Barry Riley, the county, others, for quite a while. So they know that they're out there, and they do understand that if it's structured properly, not like the one that we'd had before, which was all of downtown, that the areas around the TIF will increase, even during the time where you're rebating some of the property taxes inside the TIF. The catchment areas around it will tend to benefit as well. So as long as we're not trying to do anything too broad. In concept, they have suggested they were supportive. Let's see, let's go Alderman Black, Fruin, and then in this direction here.
Thank you, Austin. So I guess I have a couple questions. Number one, what is the virtue of having this work done by consultant versus in-house through the city?
Sure. Well, these are the eligibility studies criteria that I think are present in Colonial Plaza. It's one of my hobbies is to read these all the time. Really drives my wife nuts. Why are you reading more TIF eligibility studies? I think I probably could write one of
You're a
these,
whiz
maybe
in fun
by
at parties, though.
yeah, but this would be like the only thing that I would do for quite a long time, and would not be able to respond to other requests from local businesses and developers. So thus the need to
So it saves us an FTE in order for these kind of one-off projects.
for sure. And also, again, the tremendous amount of experience that this firm brings to the table to put together, to tell us, I think this area has these blighting factors. They will be able to really say that for certain. And that is the type of documentation that the other taxing bodies would look for,
Sure.
not just what I'm able to put together.
Gotcha.
Alderman, if I can add one more, not only, we don't have the staff resources, we don't have the expertise, but also this document has to be legally defensible. I've seen, examples where, again, other taxing bodies or those who maybe oppose the TIF could come back and challenge, the basis for forming the TIF. And so that's why, again, having a firm like this, and time is of the essence. This particular report needs to be moved along as quickly as possible to help meet the timeline of the owner of the Colonial Shopping Center and their plans for investment.
Certainly, and thank you for that answer. I guess my second component is about the timing. I remember it was about a year ago, we sat down, talked about some West Side surgical TIFs that the mayor was referring to. This has come up very quickly, and I get the timing behind it, but it'd be nice to have some of those move forward. I know there's a lot of interest from the residents, and to see the neighborhood improvements as quickly as possible. I know that we got to move with some rapidity here because of the money at stake, but those shouldn't be left by the wayside. Thank you.
For sure, yes, and I just want to emphasize that I am have talked with multiple property owners on the west side from a commercial retail standpoint where TIF could be a component of that, of a redevelopment project. Those projects just unfortunately aren't at a phase yet where I could bring that forward, and
Sure.
and that in those areas, you typically want to get one of these when you have a project ready to go in order to maximize the life of the TIF and the increment that can be created that can be used to benefit other adjacent properties. And so I would hope that at some point we can get those conversations going on the west side, and that if we did use TIF, we could expand the area around to not only benefit that commercial property, but also benefit some of the residential areas too.
And because I just want to go back to the students that came through here and did the presentation about the TIFs and show them some of the fruits of their labor, so
Right.
appreciate that.
Yes.
Oh, you have a question?
I was asking if we need a motion.
Not for this one, yeah. Alderman Fruin, Burgess, and Lauer.
Thank you. Austin, again, I'm encouraged by the commercial development of recent past and even tonight with Green Top, and with this likelihood. We talk a lot about providing city services, and one of the ways we can do that is through commercial as opposed to residential. I think that's always an interesting discussion. My only question is the boundary lines, and what catches my eye is that we've got Bloomington High School, junior high school, football field, baseball field, tennis courts part of this. So what's the logic of including public land?
Yes, well, as I alluded to earlier, this has become my hobby, reading these, and I've noticed that many newly created TIF districts within the last few years, when the boundary lines are being drawn, they have sought to include school property when it is a potential to do that. I've done some further research on that, and the logic behind that is that it is legally allowable for the city, who would be the one, or municipality that would be creating the TIF district, to enter into an agreement with the school district, just like we would enter in with an agreement with a private developer to rehabilitate a private commercial building for TIF-eligible expenses. We could potentially also enter into an agreement with District 87 for them that we could use TIF increment that would be created that wouldn't be rebated to other private developers. If there's additional extra increment available, we could work with the schools to offset their costs for TIF-eligible expenses, things like infrastructure improvements, HVAC, new windows, new roofing, anything that would be considered TIF eligible, we could do with the schools if it works out that we can include their property in the boundaries of the TIF district. Other municipalities have entered into what are called make-whole agreements, where they somehow pay out to the school district a portion of the TIF increment. However, we've been advised by Kathy Field, our special legal counsel that specializes in TIF, that those types of agreements are not really legal. Those agreements have been challenged. So
That's very helpful, and any way that we can help District 87 is a good thing, so thank you.
Okay. And then Alderwoman Burgess, your question was answered, so we're to Alderman Lauer.
Just help me here a little bit. Of the percentage of TIFs that actually prosper and actually work, what kind of economic conditions are those exposed to? Would you say that it would be a growing economy or a declining economy in which we see those that are actually progressing and do what they were intended to? Is that normally in a growing economy, or is that in an economy that's retracting?
I'm not sure I understand your question. Are you saying
It's
like
very simple here. You know, you Google a TIF, and it's in the basis for the definition is in a growing economy. These are things that you use to stimulate blighted areas. And I've got the fact that we feel like we've got some blighted areas, but we're not in a growing economy here. We're in a retraction. And there is a direct cost with these things. Okay? It is borne by those that are not in the TIF district. And so if we were talking about an area that had not developed for 20 years, like our old railroad yards, and we were in an actual growing economy where people were doing well, where jobs were plentiful, where we were actually building new homes, this might be something that I would certainly encourage. But I have a hard time accepting the fact that we're going to basically burden businesses and taxpayers on the outside of this area with the additional expense, because somebody's got to pay the bills. Okay? If you keep allowing folks not to have to pay the bills just like everybody else, it does fall. Those expenses do fall on the rest of the community.
Well, as I stated earlier, this area has been targeted in the comprehensive plan as a Tier 1 redevelopment site to promote infill redevelopment. During the comprehensive plan process, it was shown that development on the fringes of the community costs the city a considerable amount to deliver city services out to the edge of the community. So I think the more that we can incentivize and support infill development, especially in the core of the city as we have here with this area, the more savings it will be for the city, not an additional
From the big
cost.
scope, you're probably correct, but not necessarily in all cases. And in many cases, there's developers that would prefer to develop on the periphery outside of TIF, but they're unfairly disadvantaged because of the TIF. If they could pull their load and afford to pay those tap-on fees and pay for the infrastructure that they are going to be using, even if it is over a short period of time, why would we discourage that? And that's exactly what this does in a down economy.
Well, just to clarify, the TIFs come out of the Reagan era, and they're Reagan at a time where the economy was declining substantially. I think it seems to me, what you in order to take a look at that, I think it's more necessary when an economy is declining. And again, it's
if
just...
the folks can actually afford to pay for it, sir, that's true.
Okay. Other comments, questions? Okay. I think this portion looks like we're done with questions. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification, Alderman Sage.
Mayor.
Yes. I'm sorry, Alderman Ferrone.
I'll let City Manager Hale speak.
Yeah, this vote needs to be taken. We're recommending that this ordinance to authorize the TIF feasibility study be awarded So a motion,
We do need a
second, and a
motion. I
vote is
believe one was
needed on
offered.
this.
Now we do.
No, yeah, yeah.
But there are two
Yeah,
things
it's
that
needed
need-
in both.
Yeah.
It's needed for
Right.
both.
So, Diana, was that an offer?
Sure.
Okay. So offer a motion to approve. Is there a second? And I'm looking at Alderman
TIF
Fruin.
feasibility
Okay.
study, yeah.
Second by Alderman Fruin. Further discussion on this? Alderwoman Burgess?
Now that we're taking a vote, I just want to mention one thing that I think is notable about this particular TIF is that it's not entirely speculative. We have a retailer who wants to be part of this, and they are asking for this economic development tool in order to move forward with their plans. So it has a wonderful balance there between a known retailer who will help to revitalize this area and then providing further incentivization for others to come in and do the same. And I like that balance. I like the idea that we know to some extent what we're getting when we move forward on this. So.
Okay. Thank you. Did you want to speak to that? Oh, okay. Okay, I vote is in favor, nay is against. The motion carries 8-1. There's one nay to announce, Madam Clerk.
Alderman Lauer.
Okay. We move on to the next item, which is item 8E, consideration of approving a resolution authorizing preliminary action known as an inducement resolution in connection with the redevelopment of Colonial Plaza Shopping Center. And again, you have a 5-minute presentation and followed by council discussion.
Sure. Well, here is a map of the Colonial Plaza Shopping Center highlighting properties that are owned by BT Bloomington LLC. Just want to point out that the Circuit City building, that piece in the middle there, it's kind of rectangular, is not owned by BT Bloomington LLC. It's actually owned by a separate owner due to the fact that the Circuit City company always desired to own its own buildings and the land that they were built on. The rest of the parcels on IAA Drive and the Empire Frontage area there are also owned by separate landowners. So what many people might think is all Colonial Plaza is in fact only the highlighted properties here. Again, as was stated earlier, the developer that owns Colonial Plaza has approached the city with a redevelopment plan to redevelop the now vacant 88,000 square foot Kmart space and to chop that up into one 50,000 square foot space and then a couple other smaller spaces. This redevelopment project is expected to cost over $10 million. The main driver of this expense is the need to add loading docks to the eastern end of the Kmart building. It's hard to believe, but the building does not have loading docks. I don't know how they got all the product in there before, but now in order to bring it up into modern standards that today's retailers expect, brings about the need for loading docks and of course the facading of the center, new pylon signs, potentially demolishing some of the outlots and building new potential restaurants there. There's a lot of potential that this corner has. It also has the potential to fall into further disrepair or to not be brought up to a higher level as the developer is proposing. And that is why staff is recommending the incentive package that is outlined in the terms of what we're asking you to vote on now, which is called an inducement resolution. The inducement resolution allows that from every expense that the developer would incur from this date forward be considered TIF eligible in the event that we set up a TIF district for Colonial Plaza. So what the inducement resolution allows the developer to do is to get started on this project under the pretense that the City Council will go through with establishing the TIF district. And again, as I pointed out, and as Alderman Black suggested, perhaps maybe I could do the TIF study. I appreciate that and your confidence in me there, but you know, talking to some other experts and just looking at just Colonial Plaza itself, it's very easy to see that it suffers from many of the factors that would qualify it as a blighted area. Again, excessive vacancy, 77% vacant. Definitely a lack of growth in equalized assessed value. I've talked with the assessor's office and looked up the EAV history for this property for the past number of years and also looked at the EAV history for the entire study area, and it has declined over the years. lack of community planning and poor layout. I mean, you definitely see that here with the way this property is planned and laid out. Most of the corners that we have on Veterans Parkway that are set up as retail areas, one developer owns the entire corner and has ultimate control over it. This center is unfortunately hampered by a lack of planning, a lack of foresight by past city officials that allowed this situation to happen. So the main hook and the reason why staff feels that this is a great development to support is that the developer has attracted Dick's Sporting Goods to become the anchor store here in that 50,000 square foot space that will be created. Dick's Sporting Goods will attract many other, it is our hope, great retailers to the center. As part of one of the terms that's outlined in the inducement resolution, we are requiring the developer to secure leases with multiple retailers that would generate in excess of $20 million in sales annually and bring those here into the center. Does anybody have any questions?
Just to add to that, as I think I mentioned before, one of the particular issues is having vacant strip malls is a serious problem. And at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, there's always at least a panel talking about that. That's a common problem everywhere because building strip malls are not really the way to prosperity in most communities anymore. And if they're abandoned, it's not just that you don't get the sales taxes, that you don't get the property taxes. It's not a source of economic growth. It's also the case that it becomes a target for gang activity or increased crime and other issues. So as a community, I would urge us to try to do whatever we can possibly do to avoid having abandoned strip malls in Bloomington. And at that point, I will apologize. Questions of Mr. Grammer? Yes. I would certainly like a motion, absolutely.
I would like to make a motion that we pass this as presented to us.
Moved by Alderwoman Schmidt. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Alderwoman Painter. Any discussion? Okay. I vote is in favor. Nay, obviously, is against. Whoops, sorry. The motion carries 9-0. There are no's, nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Austin. We move right along to, since we're under F, update from the Budget Task Force, and this I will turn over to our chair, Alderman Dave Sage. And you have a presentation and then questions and et cetera following.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Sure. And it's always wonderful to be the only thing standing between us and adjournment. So again, I appreciate the agenda placement.
Okay, next time we'll try to make sure it happens a little differently. I apologize for that. We just had a full agenda.
Yeah, I understand. Let me try and be as brief as I can with some comments in order to allow more time for some feedback from the council. As you know, the Budget Task Force was formed with some very specific charges. We came back for a first touch point with the council in June, and we asked for some philosophical direction around some handling around things like balance of new revenues versus budget cuts, some other things. We've gone back. We have been working very diligently. We have, I just have to say, just an exceptional group of task force members, folks who not only in addition to the help that Scott and Amelia have been to me and to the group, but folks who represent really a great cross-section of our community. They represent large businesses, small businesses, non-for-profits, the Chamber of Commerce. So it is really quite a cross-section of representation on the task force. Tonight, what we're doing is coming back to share part of our draft recommendation with you. At the direction of the City Council, you asked us to go back and again take a balanced look at some possible budget cut ideas. Let me again say these are ideas. These are not proposals. They may not even necessarily be some of these suggestions. Some of these are ideas. And we wanted to come back and just kind of take a temperature, get some feedback from the council to make sure that we are on track to meet the delivery schedule of bringing the final recommendation back to our committee of the whole meeting on September 21st. So to that end, what I'd like to do is take and share with you some ideas that are coming as a consensus from the Budget Task Force around some possible budget cut ideas, as well as some revenue ideas, that being taxes and fees, and ask for some feedback from you on those. As we all know, we have two really large drivers that are contributing to the $7 million operational deficit in the FY17 budget year. Those are around police and fire pension funding and solid waste. As we go through here tonight, you'll see that the ideas are broken up into FY17. These are actionable items that we think we are suggesting that should be included as part of our FY17 budget process. We also have another section where we talk about FY18 and beyond. In other words, some ideas beyond the next budget cycle to look at some possible savings. And I'm not going to talk about, with the exception of pension funding, I'm not going to talk about FY18 tonight. What we will do is I will review the budget cut ideas as well as the revenue ideas, ask for your feedback, and then share with you some questions that I will be sharing along or sending along to you in an email later tonight. Okay. So let's look first at the suggested budget scenarios under police and fire pension funding for the FY17 budget. We have a consensus coming from the Budget Task Force to suspend the FY17 ramp-up payment while maintaining required state minimum and current supplemental payments. So we are making state minimum payments. We are making supplemental payments. For FY17, we would suspend the ramp-up payment, that 5-year ramp-up being part of the policy that was enacted by the council to ensure that we would get to 100% funding by 2041. The FY18 then highlights that we would adjust the 5-year ramp-up payment schedule while maintaining required state minimum and supplemental payments, at the same time supporting the council policy of 100% funding by 2041. Again, the discussion we've had, and I won't spend a lot of time on this, is to say that the reality is that we need to find some ways to free up some cash flow on the front end of our budget cycle years, recognizing that in turn we will be sacrificing some interest savings on the back end. That is just the reality as the Budget Task Force has worked through this, that we've come to consensus that this is an option that we're going to make part of our recommendation.
If I could just ask for, just to the clarity, so the $1.5 million that we have earmarked with the public utility tax, and then the $1.5 million, those are going to continue to go into the fund. It's just the extra payment is what you're saying?
Yes.
The extra on top. So there's no money that's going to be directed away from. I think we have some firefighters in the audience and others that are concerned about this, just so that they can clear. Even if you guys ultimately come up with that, the council passes it, nothing that we put in our policy is coming out of the pensions.
I believe that is correct. Is that, or Patty, I'm coming up on 6 hours since I first got here, and
I just wanted to clear that for some of the people in the audience that just
and that's a good question. I mean,
I think another way just to say this is, we through some revenue increases, the council has fully funded up through the first 2 years of the 5-year ramp-up period, but we wouldn't necessarily go to year 3, which would have taken another $1.5 million.
Okay, then that is the answer. Thank you.
Does that help?
Thank you. I just at that point, because we had some people in the audience, I think, that were probably interested in that.
Okay. Well, and it's good to clarify that, right? Because we take a couple minutes and answer the questions as we go along. Moving on to solid waste, there is a consensus coming from the Budget Task Force that there would be 3 parts to this. Implement a first bucket charge for all curbside bulk waste pickup. This does not include branch or shrubbery. increase the bucket charge for additional curbside bulk waste pickup, and then bulk waste at city drop-off yard is free. Some comments then around that. I know that there were some questions or suggestions about looking at the property tax to perhaps provide some subsidy to the solid waste fund. It was made up or suggested by at least one, if not more, of our business people, that funding solid waste with property taxes actually penalizes businesses as they already pay these expenses separately. And then that the clarification too was also made that and we're going to have to resolve this in terms of the solid waste fund being an enterprise fund, that perhaps we're going to get to a point where we will look for fees to cover all parts of the solid waste program, with the exception maybe of the general fund covering the brush and shrubbery and pickup like that. So those are the consensus items from the budget task force around police and fire pension funding as well as solid waste. I want to go on and look at some other ideas. Again, what we've done is kind of add an additional layer of categories or characteristics to some of the budget cut ideas using these 5 categories, if you will. Program reductions or eliminations, service reductions or eliminations, shared services, alternative service delivery, and operational efficiencies in service delivery. Felt like it was appropriate to begin to think about some of our budget cut ideas using these 5 categories in terms of trying to offer some balance in terms of the items that we're looking at. Perhaps not trying to focus too much on any one given area, but this is an experiment this year. We're suggesting that we use these 5 categories. Under program reductions or eliminations, there are 2 consensus items coming from the budget task force. One is to seek full reimbursement for the school resource officer program, which has an estimated cost to the city of $300,000 a year. And then the second one is to recover full cost of downtown police hire back from downtown beneficiaries. That is, again, an item we've talked about for a number of years here on the council. I think part of what the task force has done is to say, let's see if we can move forward some of these open-ended questions and issues that have been lingering for a while. Additional BTF suggestion is to study the impact of eliminating the school resource officer program. So FY17, look for some cost recovery from that, and as well as also study the impact of eliminating that. Under service reductions or eliminations, we have some miscellaneous department reductions, as well as this idea of we've learned that we intend to complete an operational audit of the BCPA, and that audit should also include whatever impact the formation of the 501c3, yeah. Yeah, it has been a long day, but it's been a good day. Whatever potential impact the formation of that foundation would have on the cultural district, specifically as it relates to the Creativity Center. Some additional BTF suggestions also include sell the Creativity Center, sell the BCPA, recognizing that we would still have bond debt associated with the mortgage or the structure itself, but we would eliminate $1 million in annual operating expenses, convert the BCPA to an enterprise fund, and then reduce the BCPA budget by $250,000. We know that, again, the BCPA runs a deficit every year. In the current budget year, that projected deficit is about $500,000. So a $250,000 reduction in next year's budget would result in almost halving that deficit. Next, on shared services. The consensus coming from the budget task force is to seek maximum cost recovery of the total $480,000 estimated expense for Sierra Airport aircraft rescue and firefighting. And again, this is a service that we provide to the airport. And again, some of the ideas that we've talked about over these last few months is saying that as you consume city services, we're going to ask you to pay for what you use. Again, the idea being that not everybody pays the same water bill. And why is that? Because some folks use more water than others. We know in our solid waste program, if you generate more refuse, if you have a bigger can, you pay more for that. So this is consistent with that idea of asking for folks to come alongside and partner in the sharing of those service costs that we have. Underneath alternative service delivery, we have a couple of items. Initiate a review of outsourcing golf operations by FY17 budget adoption. So we know that we'll be adopting that budget sometime next spring, usually in April, that we would have a review of outsourcing golf operations by then, as well as an additional option to review selling all 3 city golf courses by FY17 budget adoption. And then underneath operational efficiencies and service delivery, just a kind of a general approach to ask as FY17 budget process starts, all departments should develop contingency 5% reduction plans. So again, these are ideas. We have worked with city staff on soliciting their ideas. We have solicited ideas from the budget task force members. We have invited citizens input. And so in a minute here, I'm going to talk about an opportunity for the rest of the council to engage in this process as well. Questions about the budget cut ideas? More information needed? Some clarification needed? Yeah, Jim.
Dave, I'll just make one comment. Appreciate all the work that you and Amelia and Scott and others are making. It's a big task, and we all have ownership in it. I've been attending the meetings as people have noticed. I think one of the biggest challenges with the limited time we have for the Budget Task Force is that full comprehensive understanding. And one thing that I've noticed, I think, is the Budget Task Force might be making some decisions or some suggestions without having a 100% base of information. So I think the good of that is they don't come in with all the baggage that has brought us to this point. But I think we also have the city council that's going to be that next level to fill in some of the blanks. And so I think we all probably notice that, and it's based on our experience and our tenure and what our track record is. So I think just a little bit of caution that there's some decision making without 100% knowledge.
And I would say there's I think some accuracy in that, where the particularly the community members from the Budget Task Force, when it comes to budget cut ideas, they may not have the background, and so they have relied, I think, more appropriately on staff and automatic conversation. But yet at the same time, what we've tried to do is in a very fair and balanced manner present information around some of these critical budget issues, whether it's solid waste or pension funding. Particularly those two, we spent a considerable amount of task force time looking at every aspect of those. I know where the budget task force, particularly the community members, have added so much value, has been around us talking through potential revenue increases that we'll look at here in a second. Kind of using them as a community filter. Again, there are different backgrounds and the viewpoints that they bring to talk through some of the pros and cons. Do these revenues make us less competitive, more competitive? Bring kind of an outside the council viewpoint to it. And then what we won't talk about tonight, but also then are these FY18 and longer term items that we're going to bring back as part of the final recommendation. Their conversation and their work with Scott and Amelia and I have really yielded kind of a roadmap of some things that we need to look at in the next budget year. some rather exciting things. And we'll come back and we'll talk about those as part of the recommendation as well. But I think certainly from a budget cut perspective, they don't have the expertise. I think we've tried to be fair and balanced in how we've approached that, and they have very much stepped up to the plate to be part of that conversation. So thanks. Again, consistent with the feedback from the council on June 8th, you asked for a balanced approach around potential cuts and revenues. And there was a preference from I think, the task force to look at 3 specific items around revenue increase. The first was to complete the city's comprehensive fee and rate study to look at the cost recovery. When we talk about revenue here, what we wanted to do was to look at other central Illinois communities, using those as kind of a reference point, and specifically looking at the town of Normal to make sure that we didn't put ourselves at a competitive disadvantage with whatever fees were being charged in Normal. So one thing that we spent a lot of time about, certainly won't be any surprise to the council, is for instance our liquor license, which was I think last increased when Ronald Reagan was president, to give some perspective. We simply can't wait for that anymore. We've talked about that. I think the city manager comes prepared to bring a proposal back to us here this fall for initiating a study to do that. But to do that, recognizing that we can't get whole all at once with some of these long-lapsed license and fee reviews. Okay, so it's going to have to be phased in so that we allow our our businesses and others to have time to plan for and respond accordingly. So some principles, some principles that we've kind of outlined as a budget task force is to say, as proposed revenue increases are reviewed, stay below central Illinois communities and using the town of Normal as a benchmark. And then also by ordinance or policy, new revenues to be targeted for specific new budget expenditures. And we're not suggesting this is an all-inclusive list, but to say, for instance, things like infrastructure, pensions, and or capital expenses. I think there's pretty strong sentiment on the task force to say that we need to provide line of sight for the people who are going to be paying potentially these new revenues as to what this is going to be used for. So again, I mentioned that complete the city's comprehensive fee and rate study, and we want to use that to cover our actual costs, as opposed to having folks thinking that we're trying to make profit off of any of these types of things. The other thing is to increase the home rule sales tax up to 0.5% to help address the FY17 structural deficit, with consideration for the council to explore up to an additional 0.5% to address other specific targeted expenses, for example, capital, infrastructure, pensions, that type of thing. And then thirdly to consider a property tax rate increase to 1.35. That would equate to approximately $645,000, and we would tie that to circle back around and put back into police and fire pension funding. We already fund a number of items out of our property tax fund, one of those being police and fire pension funding. We felt like it's important, if we're talking about making some adjustments to the ramp-up schedule, that we provide some source of revenue kind of on the back end to move into the police and fire pension fund. And then the third one is a much smaller one, and that is to increase the golf course fees. We're going to bring back some information or some recommendations for the following budget years about handling golf courses going forward, depending on what the studies and such show. But at least this is something in the short term that allows the golf courses to try to operate as a true enterprise fund. I will tell you, I've shared with the task force There's a lot of new members on the council. I know we were involved, I was involved in multiple conversations with the previous Parks and Rec superintendent about the need to look at raising golf fees, and that just never happened. And so now we're going to just encourage this by way of a task force consensus item. Questions about this?
I just want to start out by saying, wow, thank you. Very thorough. I mean, you think about where we are this year compared to last year. This is just excellent work, all three of you, and the others, please extend that. But, wow.
We have an excellent group. We have just a very strong, committed group that has really committed to this, yeah.
I'm sure, and I know it's been long hours, especially where you're working all day, you come do that, then you finish that, and we have multiple meetings, and we're still here at almost 9:30, and we put you last on the agenda.
Yeah.
So, we won't do that again. Questions, comments? Thank you so much for the update.
Well, I'm not quite done.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But that's good.
I apologize.
Yeah, I've got my 15 minutes, baby. I'm going to take them all, you know. So then here's what I'm going to do. You're going to get an email from me, and it's going to have 5 questions on it. And let me share those with you, because what I will do is now, again, we've solicited, as mentioned, solicited feedback from staff, the task force members, our citizens, and this will be an opportunity to get feedback from the council. And these 5 questions, I know Jim at time will ask, how are we sharing this information? How are we learning from each other? Your written replies will be included as part of the final recommendation. So Jim, that's how we'll share some information across the council. The 5 questions are this. For the final recommendation, do you want the BTF to look for an additional dollar amount in budget cut ideas? Question number 2, what traceable FY17 budget cut ideas would you like the BTF to look at? Number 3, besides home rule sales and property taxes, what other FY17 revenue ideas would you like the BTF to look at? And I'll send these to you in an email. You'll get them. Question number 4, for FY17, the draft recommendation has minimal ideas for cutting the public safety department budgets, which make up over 50% of the general fund expenses. To maintain this long-term increasing public safety cost, large budget cuts will be needed in other departments. From an FY18 longer-term view, okay, this is a philosophical question that we're going to need to answer. This is the elephant in the room that we have to give staff some guidance on. From an FY18 view, is your preference to look for other public safety budget cut ideas or to raise revenue to cover these growing costs? Okay, and then the final question, from an FY18 plus sustainability view. And we really didn't talk about those. I'll need for you to just review those again. For the final recommendation, do you want the BTF to look at other specific ideas? Again, these are coming in an email. It's late. I was hoping to get your specific feedback on either things that you liked as well as things you didn't like in the budget cut ideas, as well as the revenues. I will ask for that feedback in an email, just in the interest of time. Okay.
And so anyone would direct those to you?
To me, and just to me, we want to make sure that we don't get involved into any kind of conversation online with this. I will send it out to you and would ask for you to reply solely and individually back to me, and then I will make sure that Scott and Amelia see those as well. Okay. That's all I have, Mayor. Thanks.
Okay. Alrighty. Thank you very much. Well, City Manager's discussion.
No, it's late. Yeah, I just want to say thank you. I think you made a lot of progress tonight. A lot of very key votes, especially in the economic development area. So just shout out to thank Austin and many other members of the staff, because to bring these items to you requires a lot of staff time. So thank you for the votes and the progress made tonight. Thank you.
The only things I have also are thank yous also to Jeff Jurgens handling all kinds of things, and as well Tom Daberreiner, Austin Grammer, others who put all this work together. Thank you all so much. Just want to echo that. And again to the Budget Task Force people who have really worked tirelessly, to say the least, although you're probably all tired right now, and others, who've attended those meetings as well. I have nothing else. Aldermanic comments?
I will be ultra brief, just putting in a plug for a week from tomorrow. We're going to be doing our 4-ward meeting at the BCPA. I believe it starts at 6 p.m.
Be there or be square. Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
And also, speaking of the BCPA, congrats on Beer Fest. I thought it was a success.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. Yeah, gotta get that.
I have a
Alderman.
board meeting tomorrow evening at the Miller Park Pavilion, starting at 7 o'clock. We hope to wrap up by 9. Things range from local crime issues. We've had a number of car burglaries, home invasions, and some more serious things, as you know, the citizens want to address and want to talk about. I'm hoping to set up additional neighborhood watch entities and encourage folks to kind of watch out for one another and become a bit more community-oriented. We also are going to be addressing Parman Road and the pavement issue over there, as well as some sewer backup issues on South Hill. And not to be the least of all, but we also have a little feral cat problem, and we're going to probably addressing that at the end of the meeting. So thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Alderman Black, second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Hammond. All in favor, signify by saying aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.